Okay, this is the title is Expressions. Review and, excuse me, this is number 3. And when dealing with the expressions, remember, we first, if there's any, we'll use distributive property. And I'm going to abbreviate. There's distributive property, and then there is combined like terms. So we'll kind of separate that a little bit. And I'm just going to say LT for like terms. All right, so distributive property, and then there's like terms. Now for distributive property, we're going to be multiplying. And I'll just give you a few seconds here to write this out. Positive times a positive, positive times a negative times a positive, and a negative times a negative. Well, naturally, if it's positive times a positive, it's still positive, right? There's no negatives involved. If there's one negative involved, then it is negative. Here, negative times there's a negative, so it's going to be negative. However, when there are two negatives, you're multiplying two negative numbers together, it's going to be positive. All right, so when doing distributive property, think of multiplying, and these are the rules for multiplying integers. So when combining like terms, just look to see what kind of sign it is. If they are the same signs, same sign, you have two situations. If they're either the same sign, the two numbers, or they are different. And I'll abbreviate. Or else they have different signs. So what do we do if they're the same sign? If they're the same sign, we would simply add the numbers. You add them. What about if they're different signs? You would subtract them. You subtract the numbers. Okay, so this is what you should keep in mind. Let's just do an example of each. All right, so let's say you have negative 8 minus 6. All right, well, notice that this is also, I'm trying to use different colors here, negative 8 plus negative 6. They're the same thing. Subtracting 6 and adding negative 6 gives the same result. You get the same result. And so in this case, if I have 8 negatives and 6 negatives, that would give me a total of, you just add them. 8 and 6 is 14. There are 14 negatives. Rats, I was trying to get my colors there. 14 negatives. Okay, so if they're the same sign, add them up. Okay, what about if they are different signs? So if I have negative 8 and 6, positive 6, they're different signs. One's negative and one's positive. We subtract the numbers. 8 take away 6 is 2, but there's more negative. You have to be thinking 0 pairs here. And that is your answer. That's it. Negative 2. Okay, so you want to think hot and cold. You have 8 cold, 6 cold, that's 14 cold. You have 8 cold, 6 hot, that's going to give you 2 cold. There's still a lot of cold. The other thing to keep in mind when combining like terms is that if you have a positive, I'll put a plus, and a negative, that equals 0. Positive and a negative equals 0. They cancel each other out. One positive and one negative. Okay, hopefully that's a good refresher. Let's move on to our first example. All right, so remember we take the outside times the inside. The outside times the inside. So I have negative 2 times 4. 2 times 4 is 8. So it's 8x. And there's one negative. So the answer is negative. Then I do negative 2 times negative 6. 2 times 6 is 12. But I'm multiplying 2 negatives. Remember, 2 negatives cancel when multiplying. So it is a positive. And that's all you can do. Because these are not like terms. You cannot add these together. We multiplied them. All we did is just repeated ourselves. But you cannot add them together. Okay, this one's a little bit different. Because there's the invisible 1, if you can see it, the invisible 1. It's right there. It's right there. Right there. So we have to do distributive property. I'll just take this negative 1 times each one inside, times each number. So let's do that. 1 times 6 is 6. 6x. And there's one negative. All right? 1 times 5 is 5. But there are 2 negatives. And multiplying, 2 negatives cancel. And that is it. Now look at the result. If you have a negative 1 on the outside and you're multiplying it, notice how it changed the sign of everything inside. This was a 6x, now it's negative 6x. It was a minus 5, now it's a plus 5. So it changed those things sign, those numbers signs. Powerful. So when using distributive property, we're using these rules right here. Okay, so now what we'll do is we want to combine like terms. So let's see, I have negative 2x and I have a positive 7x. Put those together. Now notice they're different signs. Okay, so what we're doing is we're using the rules. These rules right here. Same sign, add them. Different sign, subtract. And if I look at this, these are different signs. Negative and positive. So I subtract it. 7 take away 2 is 5. And there's more positive. So it's a positive 5. 5x. Okay, then when I have a 3 and a negative 9. So if I put those together, I have Positive 3 and negative 9. They're different signs, so I subtract the numbers. 9 take away 3 is 6. And there are more negative than there are positive. So I will make it negative 6 or minus 6. You could say plus negative 6, or you can just say minus 6. And that is your answer. Okay, number 4. Okay, notice there's nothing in front of, there's no coefficient in front of the parentheses. It's just the invisible 1. In other words, there's nothing to do. You could just bring these numbers right down. In other words, they're there to kind of fool you. They don't even need the parentheses. They're unnecessary. So now let's put together the like terms. So what do we have? We have our negative 4x and positive 10x. Those can go together. They're different signs. That's negative and that's positive. So subtract them. Subtract the numbers. 10 take away 4 is 6, and there's more positive. So it's positive 6x. Now let's do the constants. You have positive 2 plus 2 and a negative 9. It says minus 9. Think of it as negative 9. Treat it as that way. They're different signs. So I subtract the numbers. 9 take away 2 is 7. And there's more negative than there is positive. So it's negative 7. Or you can say minus 7. Okay, so be careful. Sometimes there isn't any number in front of there, and there's nothing you can do. So I've reached the bottom of my page. I'm just going to go back up to the top. And number 5. Kind of a long one. Looks like we'll have to use distributive property twice. Okay, so I'll take the outside times the inside. Okay, that's an invisible 1 right there. So 2 times 1, that's 2, so it's 2x. And they're both positive. Then I have 2 times positive 4. 2 times 4 is 8. And they're both positive. I'm multiplying with positives. Just to refresh your memory, we're using these rules right here when using distributive property. Okay, then when I have negative 3, that's a minus 3, treat it as negative 3, times 4. So 3 times 4 is 12. And notice I'm multiplying with one negative. One negative, so it is a minus or negative. Then I have 3 times 1. 3 times positive 1. 3 times 1 is 3, and there's one negative. I'm only using one negative, multiplying, so that is a minus 3. Remember, treat minus 3 just like a negative 3. All right, now let's combine like terms. So I have a 2x and a negative 12x. All right, remember, now I'm using the same sign add, different sign subtract. Well, these are different signs, so I subtract them. 12 take away 2 is 10, and so that's 10x, and I have more negative than I do positive. There's more negative. think of 0 pairs. They cancel, you're going to have a lot more negative still left. All right, now I'm going to do the constants. I have an 8, positive 8, and a negative 3. Minus 3 and negative 3, treat them the same. Well, they're different signs, so subtract. 8 take away 3 is 5, and there's more positive. So it's plus 5. And that is your answer. And that's all we can do for this. That is simplified. All right, last problem, number 6. All right, so let's use distributive property. The outside times the inside. So let's see, I have 5 times 2. 5 times 2 is 10, so that's 10x. And they're both positive, so it's positive. Then I have 5 times negative 1. 5 times 1 is 5, and there's 1 negative. Remember, we're using the rules for distributive property. That's multiplying rules. We just count the negative signs. So there's 1 negative, so therefore it's minus 5. Now notice that there is, for this other one here, there's no coefficient. But actually, there really is. It's a negative 1. Right there, it's a negative 1. And if I distribute that negative 1, it's going to change the sign of everything inside. Watch how that works. Again, 1 times 3, that's 3x. And there's 1 negative. I'm multiplying with 1 negative, so it's minus 3x, or negative 3x. Then I have negative 1 times negative 6. 1 times 6 is 6. But there's 2 negatives. I'm multiplying 2 negatives. They cancel. That's a positive. So did you notice how that minus in front changed the sign of everything inside? Okay, so now we can go ahead and put together our like terms. We have 10x and a minus 3x, or negative 3x. So let's see, 10 and negative 3, you subtract them, 10 minus 3. 10 minus 3 is 7, and there's more positive, so it stays positive. Excuse me. Then I have negative 5 and a positive 6. Okay, so let's see. They're different, so I have to subtract. 6 take away 5 is 1, and there's more positive than negative, so it has to be a plus 1 or positive 1. So the tricky part is there's actually a negative 1 to multiply, to distribute inside here. Okay, so now you know when to use the rules. For distributive property, think of counting the negative signs, combining like terms, add the numbers if they're the same sign, subtract if they're different signs.